Welcome to the June 12th edition of the PFF Forecast. We are coming to you from a couple of different spots, but we have something in common to talk about. I'm George, and I'm joined, as usual, by Eric. We're going to bemoan the college commencement ceremony, one of which I went to today. And I promise we won't spend too much time breaking that down. We're going to talk about some of the bets that we have won/lost, and some bets that we are going to make. A couple of futures bets we like, plus NFL MVP and comeback player of the year markets. And you never know, you might get a recommendation thrown in if you're lucky. Let's rock. All right. So I teased it at the beginning. I just got to get this out of the way. I've been obviously in a college commencement ceremony before. You were a professor in a past life, and I have news. The college commencement has not innovated in any way, shape, or form since the two of us were a part of one. I went to one today for my sister, who is graduating here in Seattle, and yeah, I don't understand it. They're like the least efficient, most ridiculous things in the world, and you're there for like 5 seconds to see one person walk across the stage, and then it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I never really got that. I mean, when I did mine, it was obviously cool, but I went to a comprehensive school, so it was like, I think we had like 7,500
special people,
7,500 students. So it was, and then you split it with like College of Science and stuff, and like, so then it was, it wasn't that big. Plus, when it's yours, you obviously feel good.
Yeah.
Then, when I got my master's, the funny story about my master's degree is like, I honestly, this is how type A you found out I am. I applied for my master's degree what I thought to be a semester in advance, just to get it out of the way so I didn't have to like do anything. And I got like a thing in the mail with my master's degree basically being like, hey, you actually like finished everything. So then I got it without knowing. So I didn't go to my master's degree ceremony.
Good for you.
Then I went to my PhD one. In the PhD one, they do like hood you. So like essentially your PhD advisor goes up with you.
That sounds wrong.
And puts like the hood thing, the sash and all that stuff on you. So it's a little bit different. But then when I was a professor, so I was a professor for 6 years, and the requirement was you had to go once every year. So there was a summer commencement, a fall commencement, and a winter spring commencement. And I like maybe went the first year. I remember it was terrible. And I like literally skipped town basically every year after that, and to the point where I like got fined for not going.
Oh my God, you were a horrible role model.
So
for
like
these
my
kids.
last year there, which is kind of funny because I knew I was leaving, like, and I like got 10. I like nothing. No repercussions.
Did you not teach like classes with a bunch of seniors?
Well, early on, no. Like my first few years, I taught a bunch of like Calc 1, and then I taught differential equations. But yeah, and you make a good point.
So there's like no reason for you to go.
The students that I had for all 4 years, like I had 3 cohorts of those students. By then, yeah. And then my last year, I had some students that I liked that graduated. My dad, actually, one of the people that's in his that goes to his church, like the youth pastor. My dad's church graduated from UWL, and so like my dad went to one, and I want to say the chancellor like took a selfie during it, and I just remember this thing. I just remember being like, "This is all stupid."
Yeah.
So
that sounds terrible.
It just sounds like something you got to get through. But I'm glad you got through it. Speaking of getting through
I will say this: one thing that you could easily do to make them a hell of a lot better, just a thought here, is to provide beverages of the adult variety. I don't think it's that hard. I think you'd make a lot more money, and I think a lot of people would have a Bloody Mary or 5 during, and I don't think it'd be a problem. I really don't. I think it would help a lot. Anyways, that's just one of my thoughts there. Okay, so I want to tell you about, so there was an F1 Formula 1 race this morning. It started at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. Pacific time, which is where I am. It is in Azerbaijan, so very different time zone. I didn't have a chance really to watch like any of the
Microsoft
qualifying.
Azerbaijan.
There you go. Jesus Christ.
That's how much of a dork I am.
You're a huge dork. So I didn't really have a ton of time to do a lot of research, but I was helped by some people that I've mentioned before. First off, the Formula One app is fantastic, so I was able to kind of like quickly figure out what was going on. Also, I've mentioned him before, Sam Hoppen, who does a simulation of the race, and it was funny actually. I placed a few bets, and I remembered I needed to look at what his outputs were to kind of see if I was on the right track. And it turned out we were very much aligned. So our guy,
You tell me Hoppen was on Verstappen?
No, in fact. Oh. So
that would have been good, though.
Yeah, it would have been great if you'd paid attention to any of the tweets that I have about this race.
I bet Verstappen today, by the way. It was my first ever win and first ever bet.
Yeah, you got very lucky that I kiboshed the Ferrari group. So Charles Leclerc was on pole and yet was not the favorite. And so that was, in my opinion, a mistake. And so I bet Leclerc to win. It was plus 150. Verstappen was the favorite, even though he was in third position. His teammate was ahead of him. So Ferrari is leading. Leclerc is leading. And all of a sudden, as it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where I bet Leclerc and he was winning by 20 seconds, and literally his car like pooped itself on the track. That happened again. His car dies as he's winning the race. And so both he and apparently there seems to be a problem with the Ferrari engine because he and his teammate, Carlos Sainz, who I bet, by the way, at 18-1, they both had to retire their car. And the other cars, I'm forgetting the name of the car at the moment, it escapes me, but there's another car that runs a Ferrari power unit / engine, and that car, both those cars also retired. So it was a very, very bad day for Ferrari. The good news is that the other two bets I made were very shrewd. One of them was Sebastian Vettel to finish in the top 6 at 3-1. He finished in 6th position. And I was very close to hitting Pierre Gasly to podium. I believe he ended up P4 or P5, but that would have paid 10-1. So ultimately it was profitable. Could have been way more profitable. But I'm glad to see that you got lucky and won an F1 bet.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be involved. I tweeted at you that you got to stop like using the players like.
Well, why didn't you tell my bets here?
I didn't know who the acronyms were. The initials.
You have a PhD in math, Eric.
I logged on and I couldn't find any that were like, so I just bet Verstappen.
They're the first 3 letters in the guy's last name.
See, but I thought the guy would have last name. I thought it would be like, Courtney Vandersloot, so CVS, right?
I see what you're saying. So you were assuming the
Eric Allen Eager, EAE. That so when I logged in, I looked and I said, "Who's the first guy's letter? First letter." Yeah. So that was why I tweeted.
So you were confused. I'm sorry. So that's my fault. I'm assuming.
It's not your fault, but I just said like I was joking because I was like, "Hey, because I woke up this morning thinking of something." But actually, because I've had.
Here's the reason I do that though. Typing out the entire last names feels ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's for peasants. I mean, I have had an earache, a pretty bad one since we last talked Wednesday. So like I haven't been able to sleep. So I've been in like the middle of the night, just like double, tripling how much I bet on the USFL. But then I wanted some F1, and I log in and I look at your Twitter and I'm like, who the hell are these people? It's like a golf matchup that our buddy Andy Molitor would post and like.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
I'm sorry about how are the USFL bets coming for you though?
I mean,
because
the Birmingham Stallions lost their first game to Houston. I had lost their first game to Houston. I had a decent amount of Houston. And then I had over in the New Jersey game, which hit. I have a lot on New Orleans. New Orleans is up 17-0 right now, but the only way that they've gotten any offense going is by turning over Jordan Tiamu because Kyle Sloter has been booty for like the 3rd straight game.
I'm shocked by that. I thought there was at one point where Vikings fans were convinced that Kyle Sloter was the future.
They were, and then they came back to crow a little bit in the USFL, but he has 22 turnover-worthy plays. He leads the league with 11 interceptions. 22 turnover-worthy plays is 10 more than the next worst person in the USFL. Luckily for New Orleans, they're playing him today, Jordan Tiamu.
My God, that's
Chiefs legend.
Yeah, that's absolutely brutal. Okay. Well, I wish you all the best of luck with your New Orleans Hornets or whoever the hell it is.
Pelicans.
The Pelicans, yes, of course. Is Zion playing for them yet?
They could use a swing tackle. I would say that.
Yeah.
How good would Zion be? Like, would he be an edge player? Would he? No, he's not athletic. He's athletic.
I mean,
shut up here.
He's 6'9". I feel like he would have been an anchor left tackle for.
Yeah.
Actually, he's not 6'9". He's like 6'6". He's one of those players. He's like Charles Barkley.
I was just gonna say. So like he has the wingspan of like a 7-foot guy, but he's like
Yeah.
only 6'4". Like
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a
Sean
little
Slater's
taller than
dad,
6'4".
Slater.
Yeah, but he's like definitely shorter. Here's the thing: the New Orleans Saints, the city of New Orleans, if they had a choice between, that's a stupid question, but if they had a choice between Zion replacing Teron Armstead at left tackle or playing in the NBA, I wonder which one they would choose.
Yeah,
There's a decent part of me that thinks that it's playing tackle to replace Teron Armstead. That's a ridiculous question. Okay, before we get into the actual football stuff, a reminder that fantasy season is fast approaching. And I know you're thinking about the, leagues that you're in with your buddies, but here is something that you should get into if you haven't already. It's Best Ball Fantasy Football. It's very easy, and the best place to play is at Underdog Fantasy. Their Best Ball Mania tournament is $10 million in total cash prizes. Here's the deal for all of you that are new to this. You draft once, you never have to do anything else for your team because the best players play every single week. So it's the highest scoring players, and you never have to worry about start sit. You never have to pick anybody up. Super simple. The person that won that tournament last year drafted in June. So trends would tell you that you have 18 more days to draft. You better get on it. Plus, here's the deal. Use promo code PFF with your first deposit, and Underdog will double it up to $100. And if you play 10 of those dollars using promo code PFF, you get a free PFF subscription. I cannot tell you what a great freaking deal this is. So go underdogfantasy.com or to the App Store and download it there. Promo code PFF. Draft, win, enjoy. All right. A couple of futures bets. You've been really pumping the market full of Detroit Lions love. You're basically like the NFT thought leader equivalent of.
Did I show you?
Did
I show you the newest Lion in the Den?
Please
give that. And actually, this is what I love. This is what I love because it's somebody in the syndicate who gets the joke. It's our friend Yachty at Yachty Bets. Okay, so at Yachty Bets, who was the one that alerted me, not to Mina's tweet, because Mina had some Lions propaganda, but it's a woman by the name of Pamela Maldonado, who is, I think she does sports betting content for Yahoo, and she goes, been doing some early looks into NFL, and the first team that caught my eye is the ... Lions, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, upside down smiley face.
Love to see it.
And our friend Yachty Bets at PFF Eric, another one. Look, at this point in time, do you think the Lions, over under Lions win total, closes at 9?
It'll be under, but whatever the number that it closes at is, the juice will be heavily on one side. I am very confident that it will be the over. I'm trying to think if this is more or less excitement than what the market had for the Commanders last year, but it feels very Commanderish.
The Commanders go over this win total last year, right?
I know. Oh yeah, I know.
So,
and this team has a better quarterback. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if Jared Goff is healthy, then he's better than whatever Taylor Heineke was last year. Okay, give us a new member of the of your pump and dump scheme.
This is my so this is NYG, not NFT. Okay, let's just get that straight.
Great, both extremely valuable.
Yeah. This is one, again, this is just about schedule, and it's just about misconceptions of the constituent pieces of this team, right?
Okay.
So the New York Giants right now in the marketplace are plus 225 to make the playoffs. So, if you want to do the math, and actually somebody messaged, our own Austin Gale messaged me this the other day. How do you convert that into implied probabilities? You basically, so 225, you do 100 divided by 225 plus 100, right? So that'll give you the break even on an underdog, and that's 30.7%. So you basically need the Giants to make the playoffs 31% of the time or more to justify a bet there. We actually make it plus 155, so just a little bit under 40%. So there's some value there. We talked about this last week with respect to the Lions. The Lions play a schedule that's a point worse on average per game than the average team on a neutral field.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants have a schedule whose average opponent is 1.5 points worse than the average team on a neutral field. By far the easiest schedule in the NFL. There's a lot of paths here. This is different than a long shot in the AFC, where I think for some divisions like the South, say you're taking a long shot like Jacksonville, their path to making the playoffs is to win the division, right? Like there's not a ton of wild cards just laying out there for a team like Jacksonville. Same thing if you want like the Jets, let's say, they could make a wild card, but the easiest way is for the Bills to get hurt and for Miami and New England not to be the teams that everybody thought they were. So for the Giants, though, you look at the NFC, and yeah, they can win the division for sure. But they could also just go 9-8 and get a wild card because they're competing for that spot right now with New Orleans, Philadelphia, Arizona, Minnesota, teams like that, and they could certainly do that. And we take them over 7 wins. It's plus 105 on FanDuel DraftKings. I'm sorry, we would make the over minus 262, which is a lot of edge there.
Couple of reasons I like this. Let me read you their schedule in true Bill Simmons form once again.
Love.
Titans, Panthers, Cowboys, Bears, Packers, Ravens, Jags, Seahawks, Texans, our Lions, Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Colts, Eagles. The Lions are the 6th best opponent on their schedule.
Well, it's in that stretch of games where they play Seattle, Jacksonville, the doldrums of the league. So,
you think about how many top 10 teams they even play. You've got the Packers and the Ravens, and that's it. They've obviously got the Cowboys a couple of times, the Eagles a couple of times within their division, but the rest of, the outside of division games are a piece of cake. If you think about Daniel Jones here for a second, and I don't want you to think about him for too long and hurt your brain here, but there is, I actually think we talked about this last week. The opportunity for a guy to make good throws down the football field, it needs to be a part of the scheme. Now, I would argue that a scheme that runs a quarterback sneak on their own 5-yard line is not the scheme that I would expect to generate opportunities for big plays. You look at, and I'm using just the quarterback annual on PFF.com, he was 32nd in big time throw rate last year. However, he was 4th at avoiding negatively graded throws. He was 18th in grade from a clean pocket. And 9th in terms of limiting turnover-worthy play rate. So, he also, managed to take fewer sacks than the average last year. So, look, I think there's a lot of room for positive regression here. The thing with him is obviously the fumbles and turnovers and all that stuff. But if you believe that fumbles are a little fluky and that maybe a part of that was the fact that his offense was the worst, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, I think there's some reason to believe this can be successful. I'll throw one more thing at you. This is not meant as a comparison. But Daniel Jones is more mobile than most. Now, he's not Josh Allen. No way, Jose. But I think there are some things that they can do with Daniel Jones, a la what the Bills have done with Josh Allen, that can make that offense a hell of a lot better than it would be with just a guy like Daniel Jones' passing skills. So I'm all in. I love it.
Yeah, you certainly have highlighted the most important things, right? And the thing with Jones is I think a lot of people think he's a 4 out of 10 when the data might suggest he's a 5.5 out of 10, right? And that's where,
yeah, he's a 4. He's a 4, which in Cincinnati is a 9. You know, so it's
You gotta ask Dave about that.
You know, like, so his schedule is basically like living in Cincinnati. You know, so he's getting that boost, right? He's gonna look.
You also look
pretty.
at the line of scrimmage, and defensively, Thibodeau Ojulari 8 sacks.
You
as a rookie.
You didn't like. I thought that was a well done joke there.
Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, like that's a good line of scrimmage. Yeah. On the offensive side of the ball, you have Neal and Thomas. I think this is a better team than. Are
you a little worried about their offensive weapons? I mean, I think that's the worry for me.
Jordan Akins was a decent tight end with Houston when.
That's why it's a worry. You start with Jordan Akins.
No, but I'm just going through so like everybody, like I will buy any player who played for the Texans the last 2 years and made it out, right? Like Chris Conley's going to go there and die. But like Jordan Akins, Eric Reed, guys like that who have made it out of there, I think that their grades and all that are a lot worse than we could reasonably expect, and that's in large part because of playing in that environment. But there you got Galladay, you got Shepard, Tony are all good players. Barkley's a good player out of the backfield. Like it's just, I honestly think that you can't overstate what Jason Garrett and Joe Judge meant to that team in a negative way. And this is to say nothing bad about Washington, who I'm higher on than most.
I thought you said this is to say nothing bad about Jason Garrett or Joe Judge.
Yeah. I certainly mean that, by the way. But that's kind of where I'm at as far as that situation is. I think there was an onside. So in the USFL, they do an onside kick, but it's 4th and 12 from your own 30. And they're down 17-6 now. And Jordan Tiamu picked up 11. So the New Orleans Breakers take over on the other side of the field, which is nice.
They know how much you need it.
You just saw how much I need this game.
So last week we did we talked about passing and receiving yardage leader props. And I made the case last week for both Derek Carr and for Devontae Adams in both of those. I felt good about them. One of the reasons I felt good about them is they're going to need to throw the ball. It seems as though we may have another way to kind of to play this angle.
Yeah, our intern Judah Fortang, he actually called us out. I can't remember if it was in our daily meeting or whatever, but he's like, "Bro, what about Daniel Jones?" And I think it's 80-1, right?
Yeah.
I mean when you think of what Dable did to Josh Allen, I mean, a lot of us were convinced that Josh Allen was going to be a cute little quarterback. How much of that
do you think was? I mean, I guess we're gonna find out, right? But maybe even just making Daniel Jones. It's a placebo effect. Daniel Jones is believing that Dable was the one that helped Josh Allen get to where he got. Is going to make him play better.
Right. Yeah, I get a little concerned because I do think Pat Shurmur was a halfway decent OC, because he took Case Keenum to the NFC title game with him, and he's had his moments before, but he got fired right away, right? And then Judge and I was going to say jury, but Judge and the Jason Garrett are going to, they're really going to make it hard on a quarterback to have success, right? So that I think that I'm still in on Daniel Jones, but the hard part is it's going to be like a Bortles situation if he does well, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does it, right? Where does he play well? With Bortles, there was a lot of, the defense was amazing. They were able to run play action at a redonkulous rate. I don't know that this defense will quite be that good, so we might learn a little bit more from Daniel Jones. What's funny is I wasn't even thinking Daniel Jones of that connection that you just put together with Carr yardage and Jones yardage. I was actually thinking about the next future on our list, which is the Raiders under 8.5 wins at plus 120 or plus 100, and thinking through okay, why does this make sense? And you go, well, they're a really good team, but they're playing in the best division in football by a mile, and 9 wins is going to be an accomplishment coming.
It's going to be a journey.
Division. It is going to be a real accomplishment coming out of that. And they do not have anywhere near the cupcake schedule. I mean, they of course made the playoffs last year. Yeah. They played, all of those divisional opponents twice, and then their non-divisional opponents, they've got what I think is a benefit to them. They have the AFC South, obviously, and that's helpful. But they've also got the Niners, the Patriots, and the Rams, and the Saints. So they're out of conference schedule is not exactly a piece of cake.
Yeah, we have the Raiders. Every single game is 2/3 of a point harder than the average team on a neutral field. The Chiefs are that second hardest in the league behind the Chiefs, whose schedule is about 9/10 of a point harder per game on a neutral field. So that's really the tricky thing they're coming off of. Now they didn't have an easy schedule last year. I will say that. And I think a lot of Raiders fans and our friend Josh, who is a member of the syndicate, he writes for the AP. Josh Dubow. He kind of was getting into it a little bit with Raiders fans this weekend about sort of what this team has accomplished, and he's like, you should go cover a poverty franchise like Jacksonville or Detroit. And I'm like, bro, the Raiders are a poverty franchise, almost literally. In all different ways. They haven't won a division since 2002. They haven't won a playoff game since 2002, etc. They moved cities twice since they won a Super Bowl. So, there's aspects of people are going to hate this because the Raiders were #good last year and made the playoffs, and it's the second year in Vegas, and they got a whole new fan base to go along with the two cities that already like them. But Here's my problem with them in viewing last year's team. Last year's team, they did have a positive strength of schedule, so a good strength of schedule. But they gave up 439 points and scored 374 points. Their implied record based upon point differential was 6.9 to 10.1 losses. Meaning they're a 7-win team if you take into consideration basically their ability, if you average it, make average their ability to win close games, and to me, so you come from that 7-win team. Everybody thinks they're a 10-win team, and to give them a win total of 8.5 seems ridiculous. But you're really coming from a 7-win team that added Chandler Jones, added a new coach, and Devontae Adams. 8.5, does that seem reasonable? Are they 1.5 wins better?
Well, they might be 1.5 wins better, but what's the division? I think that is certainly going to take away from it a little bit. And, the close games thing is an interesting call out because you remember, I mean, people underestimate the repeatability of a lot of things. We talk about this with the repeatability of defense, for example, right? Well, the repeatability of winning close games is not something to bank on. They started off the season and ended the season with two of the more incredible games. Remember, they won in overtime against Baltimore on Monday night in Week 1. That was a ridiculous game. I mean, Carr threw for 435. Lamar had an incredible game as well. They beat Miami a couple weeks later in overtime by 3. They did not lose a close game until Week 13 when they lost by 2 to the Washington Commanders, and won every other close game, I believe, just by eyeballing it. They were 7-1 in close games. Of course, they finished the season with the 35-32 overtime win over the Chargers, where a tie would have gotten them, into the playoffs. If that doesn't show you that they were winning close games in a somewhat lucky fashion, or that winning close games is a lot of luck, I don't know what will. Mm-hmm. And again, I know fan bases are super passionate, and the cool thing is that the Raiders have an incredibly passionate fan base, obviously coming from the Bay Area, where everyone there is an awesome sports fan, and now in Vegas that's been yearning for a football team. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be, everyone's going to come visit Las Vegas when they're playing that team, and I think kind of TBD on if that really carries as much home field. So look, and here's the other thing, you can be a fan of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. I certainly am. I think they will be great. You can be a fan of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. I certainly am. I think they will be great. But there are some severe weaknesses on that team in the secondary and on the interior of the defensive line, which, in a division where the margins are going to be that thin, that definitely worries me, right? So if you're trying to make the case for 9-10 wins, on a team that can get thrown on left and right, you're going to be in more close games. You're going to be relying on some of that good variance. Maybe they get it this year, but then again, maybe they don't.
Yeah, that's the thing is you just don't know, if you're going to get good luck, bad luck. There was also, we had the interns talk about this as far as, perfectly covered plays. They have one of the worst rates of it last year, but they got really good pressure rates. Like, how repeatable is that? That's a question that I still want to answer with data in the future. A big one for me in this regard is what are you going to do, at linebacker and in the secondary? You have not gotten better at those spots relative to last year. And you were kind of like, I would say, you had the good variance there last year, which is good, but doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that the rest of the time. So, I'm very interested to see how this goes and see how, they end up, traversing through the AFC West, given how hard their schedule is and how relatively easy Denver, if you take the 3 games, Denver and Los Angeles, by virtue of finishing 3rd and 4th, have.
Yeah, it's a good point as well. Before we get into the MVP, I almost said MVP. The MVP and Comeback Player of the Year. A quick reminder that if you are looking for a great deal, go to pff.com, get 25% off any PFF subscription with promo code Forecast. And it's not just for members of the syndicate, right? Give this gift to someone you don't know. Maybe you want to bring them into the syndicate and be like, hey, I spent all this money on a PFF subscription for you, and actually you can get it for 25% off. They don't even need to know. And then they can come in and be a part of the club. All of PFF's locked article content, fantasy football rankings and projections, which, by the way, are getting a super cool facelift for this season. So you're going to want to get in on that. Plus all of the data and grades for the entire 2021 and, of course, the upcoming 2022 season can be yours for 25% off on pff.com with promo code Forecast, FORECAST. All right, NFL MVP markets. These are odds courtesy of DraftKings. The favorite is Josh Allen at 7-1. Tom Brady, the best bet that I didn't win last year, is 8-1. Patrick Mahomes is 9-1. Aaron Rodgers 10-1, as is Justin Herbert. Joe Burrow is 12-1. Russell Wilson 14. Matthew Stafford 15. Dak Prescott 16. Jalen Hurts 18. Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray are both 20-1. Our guy Derek Carr 22-1. Some shitty person in Cleveland who's playing quarterback is 35-1. Matt Ryan is 40-1, as is Tua. That's where I will stop because the next 2 people are Derrick Henry and Deebo Samuel. What are your thoughts on any of these if you were going to bet the MVP market right now?
I think all of them that are 16-1 or shorter are, all sort of make sense to me from a like an odds and football perspective. They're all guys who you can certainly bet on in this market and have a shot. For example, Stafford at 15-1. Usually, interestingly, like when you look at the history, so like Rodgers won the MVP in 11, the year after he backdoored a Super Bowl in 10. Eli Manning had probably his best year of his career in 08 after they backdoored into the Super Bowl in 07. Not the best year of his career, but the best year of his career up until that point. Like, you have a lot of examples of teams that win the Super Bowl one year and then have a better season the next. Even Kansas City, 12-4 in 2019, 14-2. Tampa Bay had a better season last year, as did Brady, than they did when they won the Super Bowl. So
Stafford's the MVP.
Stafford's a good bet just because they sort of, then maybe not to win the Super Bowl, but to have a better overall season. Herbert's a quality player, etc.
Sorry, I was going to jump on the Stafford bandwagon because that's the bet that I like the most at 15-1. Look, I think it's going to be hard to beat Brady because there's going to be the narrative that this is his swan song, that this is his last season, and so he's going to get ridiculous media coverage. However, it doesn't look like Chris Godwin's going to be back for a little while. They obviously don't have Antonio Brown. There's some questions there. And so, you look to another player in the NFC who really hasn't lost those weapons, right? In fact, I mean, we'll see what happens with OBJ, but picks up Allen Robinson. Matthew Stafford does. And here's the thing, Eric, that I love about this. This is such a narrative-driven award. Last year in the playoffs, you think about, and every time that they play, they're going to show that throw against Tampa Bay. They're going to show the comeback against Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. And he didn't get credit for those, right, in the regular season. There's an opportunity to give him credit for those now in this season if he lights it up. And here's the thing. He is going to be more comfortable in this system. He has an entire offseason to kind of like really let those things gel. And he already had a great connection, obviously, with Cooper Kupp. So that's my favorite one within the like what I call kind of the realm of possibility. If you're expanding
that's a really,
past that, I think it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the narrative of, there's this reason why the MVP, and again, this isn't a reason to bet it, but it's a reason to discuss why the league is the way it is. The last guy to win both the Super Bowl and the league MVP was Kurt Warner in 1999. So, it's, to me, you want to pick a Super Bowl bet based upon who you think can kind of get hot at the right times, right? I think of like Green Bay, Kansas City as being teams that have broken it down this offseason, might not be as good as they were last year, but if things come together, they might be a value, right? Whereas previous years, Kansas City wasn't a value in the Super Bowl market because everybody wanted them. The Bills this year are not a value in the Super Bowl market because everybody knows they're the best team, right? There's no value there. Same with Tampa. Everybody knows they're the best team in the NFC. But those are the players for whom you want to back in the MVP market because they come in with the prior of being one of the best players in the league, and that's what people want to base their votes on early on, right? Like the prior matters as far as sort of early in the season versus later on.
Should Mahomes, Herbert, and Herbert be this high, given how challenging that division is going to be? Mahomes 9-1, Herbert 10-1. Like, it wouldn't surprise me for either. You think about just statistics and, throw, obviously PFF grade in there. Like Josh Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, 3 best young quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's not particularly close. I guess you throw Burrow in there too, but it wouldn't surprise me for any of them to have by far the best statistical season. But for them to win the division, Mahomes and Herbert are just like taking away from each other left and right because of the division. And then, of course, you got Wilson there. He's 16-1.
You also have a small market in Kansas City, and you have a small-ish market for football that's shared by 2 teams in Los Angeles, which, and it's always going to be a Rams town before it's an LA Chargers town. To consider.
I look at that and I go, yeah, obviously I feel like Justin Herbert has the better odds to be like the better quarterback this year, air quotes around that, than Matthew Stafford. But I think it's kind of ridiculous to have him with better odds to win the MVP than Matthew Stafford. Just like for all of the reasons that I just mentioned.
Can we think about the funny farm ones? So
yes.
Jalen Hurts at 18-1 is absolutely complete, utter ridiculousness. I don't care if he wins it. You still burned your money on 18-1, right? Like, that's a horrible price.
Yeah, that's a challenge, man. I could see, honestly, making a play at Dak Prescott being 16-1 and Jalen Hurts being 18-1 is a comedy show. And I love Jalen Hurts. Like, I really like Jalen Hurts. I just, that's way too high.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it just seems like, it seems just extremely tough to justify that one. Carr, I think, what is the narrative going to be with Derek Carr? The narrative is going to be, look what Matt Ryan did that one time, right? Because, Carr, now, Ryan was much better than Carr. 2012 year for Ryan they were a 13-3 team with a 1 seed. He's been the 1 seed twice before they made the Super Bowl. 2010 2010 and 2012. Ryan's 2012 year, from a WAR perspective, because they threw more, actually was worth more than his 2016 season. And then all this maps together, and you get Derek Carr. And I think for Carr, the narrative is opposite, actually, of what Herbert and Mahomes are going to deal with, and Wilson, which is, I mean, if Carr wins that division, he's going to have done so as a 13-2 underdog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the real, like, what they're that's what that bet is banking on, right? Is this idea that, if they win the division, Carr is going to get so much love that he's going to be in that conversation.
There are some non-quarterbacks on this list. Who, in your mind, should be the favorite from the non-quarterback?
Yeah, so at 50-1, it goes Henry, Samuel, Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, and then, hilariously, Kirk Cousins and Trey Lance at 50-1. Mm-hmm. 60-1 is Trubisky, Mariota, and Mac Jones. Jameis is 80-1. I just think all those numbers are funny farm. There's no, Derrick Henry's not winning the MVP, right? If Derrick Henry was going to win the MVP, he would have won it, the years he rushed for 2,000 yards. Jonathan Taylor's the same way. And Cooper Kupp had one of the most absurd, basically, one of the most absurd seasons for a wide receiver in league history, and didn't win the MVP. He won the Super Bowl MVP. And Deebo Samuel, I just don't know if you're going to get the same, you're going to get the same production, and it's not going to be as well narratived out, because I don't think the Niners' path to relevance this year is anywhere close to what it was last year, which is come from behind, use Deebo in weird ways, etc. Overcome the bad coaching, overcome the bad play calling of your coach, etc. Not bad play calling. Overcome the bad drafting of running backs by your coach, in the form of Trey Sermon and so forth. So I don't think the Samuel is ever going to get, the love there. I honestly think it'd be somebody like Jamar Chase, right? Somebody like Justin Jefferson. If the Vikings go 13-4, and I think Jefferson would have to have 2,200 yards. Right?
Yeah, it has to be a team where the quarterback isn't, that's why
isn't an MVP if they play well.
Right, and I think that's where the Chase one is a challenge. I think the Jefferson one is interesting. Honestly, the Devontae Adams case would be, I think, interesting as well.
Because there's a path where Derek Carr doesn't play the greatest, and
maybe where Derek Carr has too many interceptions, but Devontae Adams is absolutely insane. Here's one that I'll give you. You'll like this, but Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill comes out there and they just feed this dude the ball, and he has 25 touchdowns. How insane was that podcast that he did? That was incredible. You might bet Patrick Mahomes MVP just after listening to that podcast.
My brothers in Christ, by the way, put Tua at 40-1, which, my God, that's not a good bet.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah,
no, it's not. The comeback player of the year. To your point in our show notes, this is a sad freaking list. Derrick Henry 3-1, Jameis Winston plus 550, Michael Thomas 6-1, Christian McCaffrey plus 750, Trubisky is 8-1, the Cleveland douche once again 8-1, Daniel Jones 8-1, Travis Etienne, and by the way, the one I just mentioned was not Baker Mayfield. Travis Etienne 10-1, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers 10-1, Robert Woods 12-1, Marcus Mariota. This list stinks. Are there any? I'm assuming that you're looking at some sort of long shot. Is there a long shot that you like here?
Right. We don't even know that Michael Thomas is going to play this year yet, so that one's weird. Henry at 3-1. Do you think Henry gets to 1,200 yards this year, George?
Gosh, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough because I think their passing offense is going to suck, and so he is just going to get, they're going to devote every ounce to stopping him. I think it's going to be tough for him, especially with the tread that's on that guy's tires. I mean, if there's anyone that can do it, it's that dude, right? But yeah. Anyways, go ahead. I have a couple of takes here that I am really excited to talk about.
Here's one that I'm going to point to.
Okay.
I like Juju Smith-Schuster at 14-1.
Of course you do.
I do.
Of course you do.
Everybody wants. Somebody tweeted out today, is Tyler Boyd the Chiefs wide receiver one if he's on the team? And like, I mean, I love Tyler Boyd as much as the next guy, but like Juju was like injured and playing with like a water buffalo, like a mongoose at quarterback last year.
I'm not going to wade into that debate, but I like that one because the narrative, you know, the award is narrative driven. There's not a lot of guys with a ton of, you know, recognition here. Like, could it be Christian McCaffrey? Yeah, maybe, but that team's going to stink and no one's going to care about that team. I actually think of the people that are favorites, Trubisky is the only semi-compelling one because like it's a true comeback if this dude is a decent quarterback now. But Juju is a good one because he is a known name on a team that's going to be good. Khalil Mack is on this list at 18-1. And I just want to say that if he wins the award, it won't be because he doesn't deserve it, but it'll be one of the most misgiven awards in NFL history. Khalil Mack is the comeback player of the year for a guy that's come back from being on a shitty team, because that's what this award would be. It's like, hey, welcome back to like the land of the living. Khalil Mack has been an incredible NFL player for the entirety of his career. The idea that he is coming back from like injury or poor performance is freaking ridiculous, and I cannot believe he is on this list. That's the first thing that I wanted to rant about. The second is the long shot that I like, and that is Raheem Mostert at 25-1. Raheem the Dream Mostert is going to Miami. They're obviously going to have a lot of receivers that people are going to worry about. He's going to stay in that same offense. I know he's coming back from an injury. These days, those injuries with the knee are going to heal. The guy looks like he's shot out of a cannon every time he's running. 25-1. Raheem the Dream Mostert. I hate this entire list, so I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there.
Yeah, I can't, like, so this one, it is a good question. Like, what are they coming back from? Baker Mayfield, what's he coming back from?
The
Mariota, what's
Factory.
he coming back from? Is a really good question, I would say. You know, that kind of glooms and dooms this list, in my opinion.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is on this list, so I don't know if he can win it for the second half of the season. And actually, an interesting one is Marlon Humphrey at 40-1, who is actually coming back from an injury and will be very good. But it's so hard for defensive backs to win these awards because
he'd have to get like 7 interceptions, but I think like that might be worth doing. I mean,
yeah, and I would point out that with Humphrey, he is really well known for, you know, one of his great skills, which is getting his hands on the ball, and that could cause a bunch of fumbles. You know, that's actually, now looking at this list, I think that's my favorite one.
By the way, this USFL game, 17-6, Tampa. I got some New Orleans money line. New Orleans -3. They are going to. The Jordan Tiamu threw an interception, and they called for the second consecutive play, roughing the passer. However, they went back and reviewed it, and there was no hit to the head. It was no like charge or whatever. So they just reversed it, and New Orleans gets an interception. And so this game is probably going to. There's 2:06 left. Tampa, because their coach is Todd Haley, has 1 timeout left, and it looks like they've just turned the ball over to New Orleans Breakers on a pretty good, pretty good pass rush, good hit. An interception here, so we might survive.
It is time for recommendations. Do you have a recommendation this week?
I do. I have a couple.
Nice.
So first off, and I don't know if you're going to be in town for this. I'm going to be. This is the 1 week I'm going to be in Cincinnati for until August. But July 1st, Friday, July 1st, we are hosting another not football, sports analytics get together.
Oh, nice.
At Mad Tree in basically Oakley, Norwood, Ohio, which is a Cincinnati suburb. Last time we had somebody doing analytics at Ohio State's baseball team come in from there, so 2 hours, and we had some fans of the Forecast, some syndicate members
of the syndicate.
We had obviously our friends who do analytics for the Cincinnati Reds came. Our own Dave Solfaro came. Mike Renner came. So it was a lot of fun. And, you know, we just have a lot of analytic talent. We have people from Zealous who live in Cincinnati. We have us. We have the Reds. We have FC Cincinnati, Bengals as well. So that's a recommendation.
Hub, if you will. Will I be there? There's a decent chance that I'm there. but we'll see. I have a reason to be there. And my one question for you is this: Mad Tree is a brewery, correct?
Correct.
Do they have hard alcohol there?
Yeah, they have hard alcohol there. And they make good pizza too. And like I haven't drank for a while, so I just have, as Sulfara will call it, water at
and
there,
pizza.
And I didn't even have a slice of pizza. I was just kind of vibing.
Just the word of God.
It was a good time, and I'm excited for that. And that's.
Do you have another recommendation that can top that?
Yeah. So
okay.
I have, as people may have known, I've I've been really struggling over the last 2-3 days with an ear infection, and I've had a lot of them
at the beginning of the show.
I've had a lot of them before, but usually they go away. So a couple of times I've had to go to the doctor. My recommendation to anybody is if you have an ear infection, go to the doctor immediately. That's my recommendation, because I've been miserable over the past 2 days, in large part because...
Okay, I got a quick ear infection story for you. My beloved mother, when I was a kid, I would get ear infections. And I don't know if this actually worked, but I'd convinced little George that it worked. It was like boiling an onion heart and then like putting it in olive oil and putting it in your ear. So you smelled like absolute garbage, but supposedly it made your ear feel better. I used to have trouble with my ears on planes. Thankfully, I've grown out of that. As I used to also get like sick on planes if I looked down. Yeah. I've gritted my way past that. I'm now a machine on planes, by the way, so anyone can overcome it. I don't have a recommendation for that. I have a recommendation that I'm actually giving for a second time, but it's because the restaurant just reopened after COVID. It is what was my bar none favorite restaurant in Los Angeles, a place called Animal. They are just coming back. And so if there are a few things that are still not back on the menu, but what is the number one burger that I have ever had is back on the menu. And it is actually now not an off menu item. It is officially on the menu. I was there on Friday. I can confirm that it is still fantastic. And also, if you're going, so you have to get a burger, you don't split the burger. Get a burger for yourself. And then here's the other thing. Order all the desserts. You're welcome. That's my recommendation. That was our show. We love you all. We wish you all the best of luck with your USFL, NBA, Formula One bets, whatever it may be. And those of you that have an earache, go get it checked out. We'll see you on Wednesday evening. Love you. Peace.